Chapter 306, A Waiting Trap. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. The man looked tall and strong. His arms were as big as Jiang Yuochen's thighs. His muscles were like red-hot steel. Bang! A loud explosion in the sky made the entire valley shake. Almost all the leaves fell from trees. It was the sound of the phoenix feather arrow. It was so fast, it exceeded the speed velocity, so the arrow arrived before it was heard. The man could shoot an arrow at supersonic speed. His archery was excellent and very powerful. He could kill an enemy from dozens of kilometers away. Jiang Yuochen looked at the two men in front of him and asked, "Are you from Square Commandery?" "Yes." The woman holding the long metal whip had well-developed breasts. She showed a cold expression in her eyes and said in a low voice, "I am the imperial concubine of the Square Commandery Prince, Jin Yeon." It is unusual for the Square Commandery Prince to pay so much attention to a junior such as me. He even sends out his concubine. Jiang Yuochen added more firewood to the fire. His expression was quite natural as he looked at the man. "Your archery skill is quite amazing. You must be a martial arts legend from Square Commandery." "Young man, listen carefully. I am Yin Shan, commander of the Ace Archer Battalion from Square Commandery." The man holding the big red bow said with a coarse voice. Jiang Yuochen nodded his head. "It's a pity that Square Commandery colluded with the black market. It broke the first Central Dynasty's rule and had to be eradicated." "You did that." Jin Yeon was very angry and revealed a murderous light in her eyes, like she was going to swallow Jiang Yuochen whole. If it were not Jiang Yuochen, she would still be the highest-ranking imperial concubine and lived comfortably. How could she come to kill a junior from far away? Now Square Commandery no longer existed. She could only join the black market and live in darkness. Her glamour was gone forever. Jiang Yuochen said coldly, "Although both of you are martial arts legends in the heaven realm, with your strength, it is not easy to kill me. Who else is out there? Show yourself." Whoosh! A human figure appeared from the darkness and dashed into the valley at a very high speed. Supervisor of West Palace from Square Commandery, Cao Lin, an old eunuch in a green uniform, landed behind Jiang Yuochen. He was wearing an official's headgear with his long white hair tied beneath it. Commander of Imperial Guards from Square Commandery, Go Shizhen, a big bald man who was taller and stronger than Yin Shan, appeared quickly on Jiang Yuochen's left. He looked to be 2.8 meters tall. He was holding a white heavy sword that looked like a giant metal door. Both of his feet sunk into the ground from the weight of his combat sword. In addition to Jin Yeon, Yin Shan, Cao Lin and Go Shizhen, there were two more men standing in the distance. Behind them was a team of soldiers riding brute elephants. The brute elephant was a giant beast, close to 10 meters tall. The soldiers stood on the backs of the elephants wearing heavy armor and holding long spears. They were like a team of black ghost knights. The entire valley had turned into a death valley. The atmosphere was suppressed to its extreme. Jiang Yuochen stood up and tightened his shirt slightly. He gazed out at the valley and said with a smile, "Square Commandery's most powerful army, the Barbarian Elephant Army, was moved in order to kill me. You think highly of me. I just want to know, who will lead the army to kill me tonight?" An old man's voice came from far away. "I am Jin Quan, the 10th of the top 10 masters of Square Commandery. I am under the command of the Commandery Prince to kill you. Jiang Yuochen, we have already set up nets above and snares below. You will not escape tonight. Even if you had wings you could not escape." Predecessor Jin Quan, "It seems unlikely that I will escape tonight," Jiang Yuochen said at a normal speed. Jiang Yuochen looked calm, but in reality his heart was beating very quickly. Jin Quan was famous in Oman Ridge. He was rated as a top 10 master in Square Commandery. His martial cultivation was unfathomable. It was said that he had practiced the martial soul. Jiang Yuochen saw another shadow and felt its familiarity. "Jiang Tangai, 9th brother, how are you?" Jiang Tangai took a few steps forward. He withdrew from the shadows, exposing his well-defined face. His eyebrows were bluish-black and his eyes were sharp, giving him an imposing appearance. He looked at Jiang Yuochen with pity in his eyes. Jiang Yuochen withdrew his status. He would die for sure tonight. It was particularly sad to think about. With his great talent, He had the opportunity to become the best in the future, but he was going to die a violent death before he was fully developed. It was normal for Jiang Tangai to show a merciful expression. Jiang Yuochen asked, "You colluded with the men in Square Commandery. Aren't you afraid that Yantai Suzerain will find out about this?" "It is because of you that I am no longer a disciple of Yantai Suzerain," Jiang Tangai replied coldly. "I have officially become a member of the black market now." Jiang Yuochen nodded his head, showing an understanding expression. He glanced toward the warriors of Square Commandery and asked, "Jiang Tangai, don't you want to fight me personally?" Jiang Tangai stood up straight with his hands behind him like a javelin. He replied with a smile, "Ninth brother, you are now one of the top 100 masters on the Earth board. I am afraid that I am no longer a match for you. Don't worry, I won't give you a chance to kill me. Don't talk nonsense with him. Kill him now." Jin Yeon bent her beautiful long legs slightly and shot off into the sky. She formed 3 graceful human shadows. Whoosh! The long metal whips in her hands swung out at the same time, turning into 3 golden spiritual snakes. They formed multiple spinning lines in the sky and attacked Jiang Yuochen in the neck, waist and legs. The whips were like entities, not phantoms. The others couldn't see Jin Yeon's bodily movement, but Jiang Yuochen could see it clearly. His pupils were connecting with her meridians. On the surface of his pupils was a thin layer of genuine qi. A great deal of spiritual fire moved around the genuine qi and his eyesight was greatly enhanced. Suddenly, Jiang Yuochen rushed out, his body splitting into 9 shadows. The shadows drew swords from 9 directions and attacked Jin Yeon all at the same time. This is bad. The boy has practiced bodily movement martial techniques in the superior class of spiritual stage. I'll go help her. Go Shizun ran over quickly, each step covering almost 7 meters. He lifted the white heavy sword above his head. Genuine qi poured out from his paws and formed a spherical celestial body shield with a diameter of 10 meters. Rainbow cleaving sword. He swung his sword down heavily. Black genuine qi came out from the tip of his sword and turned into illusory giant sword image 10 meters long. It struck at Jiang Yuochen's 9 shadows and blocked his way. As the former commander of Imperial Guards in Square Commandery, Go Shizun's martial cultivation had reached the advanced stage of the Heaven Realm. Plus, he was a top warrior and had the strength to fight in different realms. The sword he struck out with full strength was certainly unusual. Even Yan Qingwu, who was one of the top 100 on the Earth board, was far behind compared to Go Shizun. The sword Go Shizun struck out was like a waterfall rushing down from the sky. Jiang Yuochen had to withdraw his sword. His 9 shadows became 1 again. His sword hit the back of Go Shizun's heavy sword with a bang. A terrible force spread to Jiang Yuochen's arm, causing his fingers to go numb. What a horrible power! Jiang Yuochen's heart sank. It was difficult enough to deal with Go Shizun alone. How powerful would Jin Quan, the top 10 master of Square Commandery, be? You can withstand my sword. You are definitely a top 100 genius on the Earth board. You do have ability. Go Shizun chased after him, pressing harder and harder, striking out his sword at every step. Despite Go Shizun's huge arms and legs, his sword technique was quite good. Luckily, Jiang Yuochen's bodily movement was very flexible, otherwise he would have been killed by the sword. Bam! Go Shizun's heavy sword missed Jiang Yuochen and hit the ground. It left a giant sword mark on the ground, more than 30 meters long, 30 meters deep and half a meter wide. It was conceivable that if it were to strike a human body, the whole person would be smashed into pieces by the sword qi and turned into blood fog. Whoosh! Jin Yeon stood in the distance with her long metal whip. She helped Go Shizun by constantly attacking Jiang Yuochen's legs and suppressing his bodily movement advantage. One was near and the other was far. One focused on his power and the other on his flexibility. They worked together perfectly. Every movement seemed to drive Jiang Yuochen closer to death. As Jiang Yuochen withheld their attacks, he looked around seeking a way out of the valley. Jin Quan and Jiang Tangai were in the mouth of the valley, in addition to the barbarian elephant army. It was a dead end. Looking to the other 3 sides of the valley, the old eunuch with unfathomable cultivation was standing on the left and the man holding the giant red bow was on the right. Both of them were seemingly top-notch masters who could not be killed with 2 or 3 movements. So, The back of the valley was the only way out. The back was a cliff of over 333 meters in height. It was smooth and barren. Maybe this was why the masters from Square Commandery weren't sedulously guarding it. However, Jiang Yuochen felt that something was wrong with this. Square Commandery had sent so many masters to kill him. They had set up nets above and snares below. How could they give him a way out? Was it a dead end? Were they just deliberately giving him a way out, when actually they were waiting for him to attempt it? Jiang Yuochen had no choice. Even though he knew that they might have set up a trap there, he had no other choice. No wonder the Commandery Prince wanted me to lead the team to kill Jiang Yuochen personally. This guy is indeed amazing, Jin Kun exclaimed. Even though he hasn't reached the Heaven Realm, he can still resist a joint attack from Go Shizun and Yun. How horrible will he be when he reaches the Heaven Realm? Even the top 50 warriors on the Earth board are not that powerful. Zhang Tangai smiled. Jiang Yuochen is just pretending. Actually, he has reached his limit. Within 50 movements, Commander Go and Concubine Jin will kill him. Jin Kun was a bit surprised. He could not help looking at Zhang Tangai and thinking, this guy's judgment is very sharp. He can see Jiang Yuochen's strength. In Jin Kun's opinion, Jiang Yuochen had been put in an inferior position with Go Shizun and Jin Yeyun's attack. Unless he was still hiding some of his strength, he would for sure die within 50 movements.